In this video we're going to be talking about photosynthesis. Photosynthesis deals with plants, and I know a lot of you guys hate the topic of plants. You think it's boring, it's not so fun. You know what? I do agree with you. Plants is not such a fun topic to teach. However, I promise you right now that photosynthesis is actually the funnest thing to learn about plants, and it's really cool. We just talked about cellular respiration, and I promise you photosynthesis should be easy if you understand conceptually about cellular respiration. Understanding photosynthesis should not be a problem because a lot of the things repeat. For starters, let's look at this equation. 6 carbon dioxide molecules, 6 water molecules plus energy will eventually generate some glucose along with the byproduct of oxygen. Where did we see this before? Once again, cellular respiration is the complete opposite. It's just reversed. So you can imagine when I teach you this lecture today, everything's going to be sort of a bit backwards. A lot of the things that we're going to reintroduce, or introduce rather, will be similar to cellular respiration. So let's get started. Photosynthesis deals with plants. We want to take carbon dioxide, this organic carbon compound, and make it into glucose. And this only happens in plants. We do not do photosynthesis. For some odd reason, I've had experiences in the past where students think that we carry out photosynthesis, and we don't. Plants carry out photosynthesis, and plants carry out photosynthesis specifically in the organelle of the chloroplast. So here's where photosynthesis takes place, but more specifically, in the chloroplast, there's a pigment protein. There's a protein pigment called chlorophyll. And what's a pigment? A pigment is a protein that provides the thing with color. So this pigment right here, chlorophyll, is going to give the plant its green color. We're going to talk more about that later, but let's just see. Photosynthesis specifically takes place in the chlorophyll of the chloroplast. And chloroplasts are found in plant cells, not animal cells. If you don't know that by now, then that's extremely disappointing. So let's go on, okay? Let's talk about this. In order to understand really photosynthesis, we're going to break photosynthesis into 2 parts. We're going to talk about the light-dependent reaction and the light-independent reaction. So obviously this will come first, this will come second, and then we're going to see how this whole entire picture fits together. So in this video, let's focus on the light-dependent reaction. So let's start. I'm going to erase all this. Let me go ahead and draw you a leaf of a plant and talk about some of just the very basic anatomical structure. So here's my leaf, my very... I'm not a good drawer, but whatever. In my leaf, I have pores in it. And these pores, these openings, are called stomates. These things are called stomates. And stomates are regulated by guard cells. We'll talk more about that when we actually get into the plant topic. But for now, just to understand photosynthesis, let's understand what stomates do. So the stomates, they'll open up and they're going to allow for gas exchange. Remember, plants want to take in carbon dioxide. They want to ultimately release out oxygen when we talk about photosynthesis. Remember, plant cells also do cellular respiration. Plant cells do cellular respiration and photosynthesis. We're going to talk more about that at the end of the video. So let's see, stomates, they're regulated by guard cells, and these stomates are responsible for gas exchange. Fair enough? Okay, let's now talk about the light-dependent reaction. What happens first? Well, you know what, let's just draw a chloroplast. I'm going to zoom in this picture right here and draw you a chloroplast. I should probably use green marker because chloroplasts are drawn green. What do we have here? Well, let's label this. Please copy this down and understand it. So here's the outer membrane. Here's my inner membrane. Here is my stroma. Once again, stroma is the intracellular space. This is the cytoplasm. It's just a different word that we give it if we're talking about chloroplast. Remember, in the mitochondria, what's it called? The matrix. Okay, these both refer to cytoplasm. This right here is the thylakoid membrane. Thylakoid membrane. And here, inside this space right here, is called the thylakoid space, or simply the lumen. And the light-dependent reaction, occurs in the thylakoid membrane. It occurs right here. Remember, once again, in cellular respiration, when we talked about the Krebs cycle, glycolysis, electron transfer chain, I told you location was very, very important. Same thing here. A light-dependent reaction, where does it occur? Along the thylakoid membrane. So this occurs with the thylakoid membrane. And now let's really understand what starts to happen. Well, you know what? Let me tell you something. We have carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide is a highly oxidized molecule, and in order to make it into a glucose molecule, we really need highly reductive substances. Highly reductive substances, such as NADPH+. Let's talk about that for a second. Hold on. So let me draw my thylakoid membrane. So here is my thylakoid membrane. Once again, this might be similar to the cristae when we did cellular respiration. Okay, so let's see what starts to happen. So here is my thylakoid membrane. I'm giving you a very short diagram, a very simple diagram. Let's just label this. Let's pretend that this right here is my stroma. This right here is my thylakoid space. Once again, this should start looking familiar to you once again. This is kind of like cellular respiration in the electron transport chain. But it's different actually. In this case, instead of NADH and FADH2 and these high energy electron molecules coming in and bouncing off cytochromes, in here we have something very special. We have an electron. We have an electron called chlorophyll A. You should know this. This electron in chlorophyll A is actually in this chamber right here, and this chamber is noted as photosystem 2. Photosystem 2, or P680. P680 simply refers to the wavelength in nanometers. So this guy right here can only take in about 680 nanometers in wavelength of light. Well, where does light come in? Well, in order to do photosynthesis, we need sunlight, do we not? Yeah, of course. So let's draw our sun over here. I don't have a yellow marker, so we're going to use black. Here's my sun. It's very happy. What is the sun going to do? Well, the sun is going to strike a photon of light. The sun is going to strike a photon of light into my chlorophyll, the chloroplast, and it's going to excite this chlorophyll A. This guy is going to jump up in energy level. This guy's going to be very happy. This guy's, jumping up and down. I'm so happy. It's gotten excited by a photon of light in photosystem 2, P680. Remember, this is about 680 nanometers in wavelength of light. We have a range. Why am I talking about this? Well, this will be referred to as photosystem 1. Photosystem 1. And this is P700. So P700, photosystem 1. Let's see what happens. Okay, so this chlorophyll A is going to get excited by a single photon of light striking it. And now this guy is so excited. What do you think is going to happen? Well, there are many, many different proteins here. We have cytochromes here. We're not going to get into too much of the details. All you need to understand for your exams is that you should know about the cytochromes. You should understand that it's going to go down some kind of chain, some kind of electron transfer chain. It's going to go down these cytochromes, these integral proteins. What are cytochromes? Remember, we did this in cellular respiration videos. Cytochromes are integral proteins that allow these electrons to bounce off from one cytochrome to the next cytochrome. So this guy over here is so excited, and it's going to start to go down and start to travel down this chain, travel down. So we can draw our cytochromes if you really want to. Cytochromes. And as we're going down, same thing as cellular respiration, as we're going down, we start to lose some energy, and that energy that is released from this high energy electron bond going down in state, we're going to use that energy to pump the protons from the stroma into the thylakoid space. So let's see. We're going to pump the protons from the stroma into the thylakoid space. Very, very similar. What are we doing? Once again, we have some protons flowing here, we have some protons flowing here. There's a greater concentration in the thylakoid space. We're going to now pump all the protons from the stroma into the thylakoid space, creating an electrochemical gradient, creating a chemiosmotic gradient. Once again, all these similar terminologies, this should be very familiar to you. I'm not going to draw protons here. You know, we did that last video on cellular respiration. Now you guys should be thinking more advanced. I don't want to make this diagram too messy, but understand this. So, we're pumping it from the stroma to the thylakoid space, and now we have a high concentration in the thylakoid space. What do you think it's going to do? It's going to travel down through facilitated diffusion by a protein channel called, you should know this, the same exact thing, ATP synthase. So here I have ATP synthase. The proton ions are going to go down from the thylakoid space into the stroma. So H+, it's going to go into the stroma, and what are we going to do? Remember, again, we have ADP, adenosine diphosphate. We have inorganic phosphate. We're going to take the energy released from this reaction, from this thing right here, and we're going to connect the two. ADP, phosphate, the energy that is released by this photophosphorylation system due to this chemiosmotic gradient, and we generate ATP. So, this is called photophosphorylation. This right here is called photophosphorylation. We have substrate level phosphorylation, we have oxidative level phosphorylation, and now we have photophosphorylation. Oxidative phosphorylation refers to when you make ATP using the electron transfer chain. Photophosphorylation is exactly the same thing, except now what are you doing? You're doing it in plants. You're doing it in the thylakoid membrane. So we generate ATP. Simple enough, yes? Very good. So understand this is exactly the same. Nothing new here, no new concepts. So we're very happy, we're making some ATP. And now what happened to this electron right here? It was excited at photosystem 2 when it got excited by a photon of light, and now this guy is going to travel down here, and now it's a bit higher in energy state. It's a bit higher than this one. And what do you think is going to happen next? Well, another photon of light, now ranging in the 700 nanometer range, is going to come in. It's going to come in and strike this chlorophyll A right there, and what do you think it's going to do? It's going to get excited once again. Same thing right here. It's going to get excited. Now it's really excited. It's more excited than this guy over here. This guy is really excited. This is in the photosystem 1. This guy is really excited, and now this guy is ready to do something. Here's what you have to know. So, in my thylakoid membrane, I have a molecule called NADP+. Now you might be saying, whoa, hold on. In cellular respiration, we talked about NAD+. Now we're talking about NADP+. Yes, this NAD has an extra phosphate group. It's called NADP+. In this case, we only use NADP+ in photosynthesis. It is not hard to memorize. Photosynthesis, P. When we talk about NAD, we're going to add a P. NADP+. And NADP+ will take this high energy electron. It's excited. It's going to travel down and get picked up by its NADP+, and what's going to happen? This NADP+ is going to pick up this electron, so I'm gaining an electron. What does that mean? If I'm gaining an electron, my thing is going to get reduced, right? Reduction will occur. Reduction will occur. And I have NADH. Sorry, not NADH, NADPH. NADPH. Pretty cool. Once again, NADP+ will pick up this chlorophyll A excited molecule. It's going to travel down to the NADP+. It's going to pick it up and then get reduced to NADPH. So, what do we make basically? We made ATP and we made NADPH. ATP and NADPH. Let's write that down right now. So, what are the products of the light-dependent reaction? What do you really have to understand? What do you have to memorize? Well, very, very easy. You make ATP, you make NADPH. And you might say, wow, that's all? Yeah, pretty much. Well, I'm not done yet explaining this, but you should remember this. There's no numbers to memorize, but I don't want you to memorize. I want you to conceptually understand the process. Yes, it's true. Your examination might not test you conceptually on photosynthesis, but what's the point of just memorizing? Okay, a light-dependent reaction. I have a product of ATP and NADPH. Let's move on. You have to understand how we get this, why we get this, and then you'll really appreciate biology. You'll really appreciate everything we teach you. So here's what happens, but we're not done yet. This is a cycle. Photosynthesis is a cycle. Well, this chlorophyll A over here, that is now over here, got picked up by the NADP+. What happens here? Do we not want to keep continuing the light reaction? What are we going to do? How are we going to get another chlorophyll A here? And that's the problem. We have to now replace this electron because it's lost. We've lost it to this NADP+. What are we going to do? And now, here's where we introduce a new thing, this new idea, well not idea, but concept, and this concept is called photolysis. This concept is called photolysis. So, photolysis refers to the splitting of water. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you need water. You need to add water to the plants. You need sunlight. Is this making sense? Right? It's very easy when you think about, okay, all I have to do is, expose my plants to sunlight. All I have to do is water it once a day, once every 2 days. But now you can understand, why do we need to water it? Why do we need sunlight? What happens, when it happens? All this, you'll be able to explain the basics now. So photolysis, splitting of water. We're going to split water into two electrons, 2 proton ions, and a single oxygen molecule. Right? If I split water in half, what do we get? Well, we get this right here. Do you have to memorize this? I would prefer you do. Oxygen is a diatomic molecule, so I'm going to represent it as 1/2 oxygen with a 2. So technically, this is 1 oxygen molecules. 1/2 times 2 is 1. So I have electrons. So these electrons will be used to replace, of course, the photosystem 2 electron, and now another photon of light can strike it, and this can keep continuing. We can keep making ATP. We can keep making NADPH. Great. But what happens here? Okay, so of course, proton ions are here. As you can see, we have proton ions here being used here. Once again, you're going to pump the proton ions from the stroma into the thylakoid space. You have a chemiosmotic gradient, and the proton ions are going to diffuse from the thylakoid space back into the stroma through a protein channel called ATP synthase. And now we have oxygen. And this oxygen is considered our byproduct. This is very, very, very important. Don't forget about this. It's our byproduct. Yes, growing plants in your house is good. We need more oxygen. We need to go green. We need to plant more trees in this world. So oxygen is a byproduct. Oxygen is a byproduct. Remember that. So what do you have to remember? For the light-dependent reaction, we generate ATP, we generate NADPH, and we also we have a byproduct of oxygen. And that's really it. That's all there is to the light-dependent reaction. Yes, light-dependent means that it's dependent on light. This reaction cannot occur without light. Hopefully that was a given. That's all there is. In the next video, we're going to talk about the second step, which is the light-independent reaction. And this is more interesting, so stay tuned.